using StreamYard. Let me double check to make sure this is working. Such a great platform. First couple weeks we've used it.
Oh, it's awesome, man. I love it.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Creating Alpha and Daily Fantasy MMA. My name is Bradley. Most of you guys know me as BB Bomb. After a week off for UFC China, we are back. UFC 242. My co-host, Joe, Mr. Sun Tzu. Joe, welcome back. It's good to talk to you, man. How you doing?
Good, man. I mean, we were talking about this before we went on air, but, last slate, the China slate, was such a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
But, the way that it started is I'm sitting on 12.5x in 24 lineups after the first two fights with two relatively low-priced fighters. And I'm thinking, this is going to be a really good slate for me. It was worth me staying up, to 3 a.m. and not going to bed. I don't think I went to bed until about 8:30 a.m. After the Andrade debacle. And I completely missed. I had to do a season-long fantasy football draft, which I completely forgot about. So like Yahoo actually did my draft for me. Of course, Yahoo rated mine as the most successful of all the drafts, of course. But so to add insult to injury, it's like you start out at 12.5x and you have that in 24 lineups, and it just all went downhill from there. So
I slept through the whole card.
You didn't see anything?
I didn't see a damn thing, and I'm very happy I did that. I normally would have stayed up, like back in the day, a couple years ago. I would have done that, but man, there's just so many cards. I didn't have too much invested in it. We were down to 11 fights on the slate. I tend not to do well on those Asian cards. There's not enough data for me. And I had some solid lineups and some decent picks. I was on Jung. He was like a plus 260 underdog. That was my big call.
Yep.
And that paid off, but like I'm trying to replay it back in my head. But I also had a lot of I had a lot of Zaleski and I had a lot of Andrade. So basically I just didn't have enough of those underdogs. Too many underdogs came through.
Yeah, Park was actually huge for me. That's one underdog that unfortunately did not work. I had Park and I bet him at plus 190. And then I thought I was a genius when the line went down to plus 130. And then he has Fluffy hurt twice and could not put him away. And then just, obviously his wrestling is suspect. And we knew that. And he couldn't finish him and he ended up getting choked out. And of course, Fluffy ended up being a slate breaker with that score. I think did he still have the highest score of the night? Like 132.5, I think he scored.
He might have, yeah.
In that fight. It was really rough. So, what can I say?
The past is in the past, Joe.
Yeah, it's in the past. Quick thank you to Kevin at DSF Army for this really sharp hat. I mean, this is quickly becoming one of my favorite hats. So, thank you, Kevin.
That is cool. And I don't know if you were trying to segue me into my little promotion here.
I was.
Kevin and I, along with others, DFS Sniper, other people working behind the scenes on this new website that we launched, dfschampionships.com. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the MMA tournaments that I've been running the past year, the MMA Shootout, the MMA World Cup. It just has so much great feedback in the community. People seem to love it. And I loved running it. So we put together that website, dfschampionships.com, and our goal is just to bring those style of tournaments to you guys down the road for different sports. We plan to have more MMA. We're going to do PGA. We're going to do NASCAR. And obviously NFL season starting up. We are running 2 NFL tournaments, a $50 division and a $150 division. And I encourage you to get involved if you are interested. It starts week 2, so you have some time. Starts week 2 through week 16. There's going to be cuts along the way, and then there's going to be a bracket stage toward the end. And winners will get big prizes, obviously, and a championship belt, which I think is pretty cool. But once again, that website is dfschampionships.com.
And give the disclaimer though, Brett, like why they are not going to see, at least directly, Sun Tzu in any of those contests.
So we had to restrict the states that you cannot play DraftKings in, obviously, and then there's just so much red tape around New Jersey, and I didn't know any of this getting into it, but yeah, New Jersey is tough.
Well, I have a question. Why are you restricting it to the states that you can't play DraftKings in? Because it's those states you can only not play paid contests.
Yeah, we want to do things by the book. Like, I don't know, we don't want to get on anyone's bad side, I guess would be, the right answer. It starts getting a little sketchy when you're giving out prizes through DraftKings in locations where you can't actually play DraftKings. But anyways, I encourage you guys to check that out if you're interested. Hit me up on Twitter if you have any questions. Let's jump into UFC 242. Joe, obviously, that is what we came here to talk about. Khabib versus Poirier is the main event. Some big prizes out there. Have you looked at the contests?
Yeah, look, the contests are good. I think they're a notch under the last big pay-per-view card, but not by much. And you also have to take into consideration that, now we're into NFL, and that definitely sucks some of the juice out of, all other sports. I mean, MMA included. But look, 50,000. And what I like about this one is they did not raise the buy-in on the large contest. So it was like $25 for the last one with 100,000 in first. This is 50,000, but it's still a $15 buy-in. I say still. I'm also looking forward to, wait a second. Will they actually have a televised slate? Probably not, right? Well, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to have a televised slate because maybe they will. But anyway, I love these events where they have a separate televised slate because there's always some really good value there. But yeah, the contests are good. I mean, $2,000, $5, $2,000, $8, $2,000, $4. You have the $1. I mean, I even got DraftKings to. There's a televised slate starting at noon tomorrow. I even got DraftKings to add a Wildcat satellite.
Look at you with the pull.
Yeah, I mean, and that actually the first one sold out, so they added a second one. So there's a buy-in, a $35 buy-in for Wildcat. And for those of you who don't play NFL, I'm really one of them, but I thought it would be fun to have a Wildcat. It's a $333 contest. So for a $35 buy-in, you can actually win a ticket for a $333 NFL contest. So that's pretty cool. And it looks like it was pretty popular because the first one sold out. I actually got into the second one. So look, I have no complaints with the contest. My bigger issue is there's so many favorites and not too many closely lined fights on this slate.
Yeah, and look at you with the professional segue once again. Let's talk about this slate. It is tough. There are a lot of heavy favorites, and I think the consensus among the industry is that it's difficult to find underdogs on this slate. Is that the problem that you're having as well?
Yeah, and I will diverge a bit in that, I've been off this week from work, so I've had some time to do a little bit more tape study than I normally can, and I got really excited about watching this guy Murphy fight, right? Murphy's fighting this guy that's coming off of a 3+ year layoff, and in the time since this guy has fought, Murphy's fought 7 times. So I watched him film, and he's quick. He's got some nice hands. He looks very athletic. So I reach out to one of my sources for UK and European fighters, and I'm like, what do you think here? I mean, does he got a shot? And he took this fight short notice, right, Murphy?
Relatively.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we all know that everybody made weight except for Sarah Morais, and I think I said it on Twitter. For those of you who don't follow me, it's kind of ironic that a fighter with the nickname Cheesecake misses weight. So he made weight, but apparently I heard he cuts a lot, and he was looking a little gaunt in Dubai. And now
he's bigger than Tukagov, though. He is a super athletic kid.
Yeah, he's super athletic. He's got a 5-inch, reach advantage, and then you've got the 3-year layoff. Now, that layoff, again, the narrative around that layoff is that he had a 2-year suspension for taking a banned substance. His last fight was one where he lost a split decision to Renato Moicano, and that was Moicano in his early days. just to show you how long this guy hasn't fought in. The other part of the narrative, and this is why I wasn't ready to jump all in on Murphy, is that, he is also a Khabib training partner, managed by Khabib's father, trains at AKA. So it's not like it's not like this guy's been sitting on his ass, for the last 3 years. He has been training, and I haven't seen the ceremonial weigh-ins yet, but he looks pretty ripped. So he looks in shape. Now, is there ring rust? I don't know. So there is some narrative around this fight, but I mean, he's the highest priced fighter at 9.5K. You got Murphy at 6.7K. You could do a lot, if you put Murphy in a lineup in GPPs. High risk play. But I effectively got talked out of my enthusiasm by my source, who said, look, this guy, Murphy, will win a lot of fights in the UK, but he's relatively easy to take down, and that seems to be the strength. Well, it could be, if he decides to fight that way, a strength of the Russian. So, yeah, I mean, I had really high hopes that, okay, yeah, I'm gonna use this guy. I'm gonna use him, and I'm gonna build a lot of lineups around him. And then, some cold water was thrown on that.
Yeah, I actually like Murphy a little bit. And it's mostly because of the price. I mean, you already talked about it. Tukugov, 9.5K. He's coming off a 3-year layoff. You saw the ban. Questions about how he's going to look back in action. And it's not just that. It's also his general style of fighting. I mean, he doesn't do enough. He lands 2.53 significant strikes per minute, 2.13 takedowns. He's actually never earned in advance of position in his 4 fights in the UFC. I mean, you want to talk about low-scoring fights. I think this was a question not that long ago about, what's the lowest score we've ever seen in a decision win. I mean, Tukugov scored 46 points in a decision win in 2015. And the other decision win he has is against Silva de Andrade. He scored 63. So at 9.5K, I just don't see any way he pays off his price unless he gets a finish. He's going to be low owned. He's a solid pivot contrarian option in that range. But man, he's plus 217 to win inside the distance. I don't expect many people to pay up for him. And at the same time, the line's trending in the opposite direction. He opened at minus 565, 600-ish.
Yep.
And that is around the time when DraftKings released salaries, but he's now trended all the way down to minus 320. So Murphy is plus 290. I mean, Poirier is plus 355, just as an example. Davi Ramos is plus 320. Abdurakhimov is plus 420. Sato is plus 320. So there's several fighters who are bigger underdogs than Murphy. You add in that, the price, the low volume of Tukugov, the layoff, there's something there. I don't think Murphy's a guy I'm going to be playing a lot of, but I definitely do have shares of him. He allows you to pay up for whoever you want.
Wasn't that 40-point win against the male nurse?
Yes.
A Felipe Nova. I mean, and that was a split decision.
Oh, right. I mean, he landed 21 significant strikes in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's hard to trust that.
Now, again, I would be, and that's concerning. Like, I looked at that, and that jumped out at me, right? I would be more concerned about that if he wasn't 24 at the time, right? I mean, he's really fairly young. He's only 28, so.
He's also a little unproven, though.
Yeah, too. I mean, how much do you put into the training he's getting, at AKA, right? Oh, and he also had a 35-day suspension, for participating in that Vegas melee.
Yeah.
During the McGregor fight. So he's obviously one of, inside of Habib's entourage along with Islam Makhachev and others. It's a really interesting fight. I mean, if he keeps it standing and he doesn't get taken down and he fights at length, then maybe, but I don't think the ceiling's that high for.
Yeah, I think it's hard to predict Murphy to win.
Right.
But I think you can also take a shot on him at 6.7K. Yep. That's the difference to me. Let's talk about the rest of this 9K range because, honestly, I'm having a lot of trouble paying up. You got Taisimov, Bilal Muhammad, Makhachev, Khabib, Curtis Blades, and Tukugov. Obviously, we'll talk about the main event, and I don't know if you want to jump right into that, but who from this 9K range, are you even interested? Because like, there's only like 2 fighters that I really like.
Oh, I know who they are. I mean, we like Khabib and we like Curtis Blades, right?
Well, yes, right, correct.
That's not rocket science. I mean, the difficult part here is how are you building your lineups around them? You know, and that's the big thing. I mean, you're going to need to put a value play in there. And look, Khabib, I give all the credit in the world to Dustin Poirier, and I just don't see him as. I don't see him. I know. Look, I get the narrative that, you know, he's big now. I mean, he outmuscled Max. You know, Max has no ground game. I mean, okay, let me rephrase that. Max does not look to the ground as an offensive weapon in the same way that Khabib does, right? So
right. It's not at all the same stylistic matchup. I mean, yes. Did Max Holloway even attempt to take? Yeah, Holloway didn't attempt one single takedown in that fight. So
yes,
it doesn't really have any relevance.
So he got worn down by a bigger guy, you know, and look, he still won some rounds, right? He got worn down by a bigger guy, you know, in his first foray up a weight class. You know, I'd love to honestly see that fight again. But I like Dustin. I love what he stands for. I think he's a great guy. I think he's overmatched here. I mean, I know there are some people out there who are picking him to win, and quite honestly, I don't get it. I don't know that Dustin could beat Al Iaquinta. As a matter of fact,
I would definitely favor Poirier.
I would be on Iaquinta in that fight. But again, that's me, and I'm not downplaying Dustin's ability. I mean, you know, obviously he's a guy that was starched by Michael Johnson, you know, and you know, Michael Johnson's got a lot of speed. I just don't see how he can put up with the relentless wrestle fucking that Khabib's going to do to him.
Let me ask you this, because I don't know if you've heard this narrative. I was listening to the Ariel Helwani show earlier in the week, and he had Paul Felder on, and Felder was talking about how they have an air-conditioned arena, and because last time it was like an open-air stadium, but this time it's, you know, air conditioning, because he's like, there's no chance any of us can last if it's in the open air again. It's just way too hot. And Ariel's like, oh, yeah, I guess I didn't know that. And then earlier today, Ariel released a video on Twitter saying that it is an open air stadium, and by the time Khabib and Dustin get in the octagon, it's going to be 100 degrees out. And I'm not totally sure what to do with that information. Part of me wants to just toss it out. It's just noise. Who cares? But like, I mean, if they're fighting when it's 100 degrees outside, I do think that hurts. It hurts both of them, but I think it does hurt Khabib's chances a little bit, just because they're going to be so slick, so sweaty, that it's just harder to grab on and hold on to your opponent. I also think it's going to affect both fighters' cardio. Do you care about that news at all? Or
well, it's interesting because we obviously have different sources in Dubai relative to the heat index, because yours was Ariel Helwani. I focused more in on Carly Baker's video with her and her UFC tube top, talking about how hot it was. So yeah, I get the narrative. I mean, I have to believe that they're going to be blowing some type of AC into the area. I mean, you know, like, I don't know if it's tented or how they're going to do it, but yeah, okay, it's a factor in cardio. I mean, Khabib did not seem to have any issues making weight, which was good. You know, I don't know what to do with that either. I mean, I guess I would look at fighters who traditionally have had cardio issues, like Davi Ramos, for example. You know, a guy who has struggled with his cardio, and the only saving grace there is it also gets hot in Brazil. You know, so maybe guys who have had cardio issues that don't come from areas where, you know, humidity index is off the chart.
Yeah, I think in general, I'm not going to think about it too much, but I do think there's a small chance, just because the UFC almost never comes to Abu Dhabi, I think there's a small chance that it kind of turns into like a shit show, and like we're just seeing all these fighters gas out quickly. I think that's possible, but it could happen. Let's just kind of summarize this main event again, because I definitely think Poirier can win. He has paths to victory, but at the same time, I still feel like it ultimately comes down to whether or not he can out wrestle and out grapple Khabib, and I just don't think that's going to happen.
Well, let me ask you this, Brett. Do you think that at 155, Poirier could beat McGregor?
Oh, I think he could.
Yeah, no, but I mean, what would you think? I mean, would you back him?
Well, I don't know. I hate answering that question because I do so much tape study and then I still am not even confident. So without me having looked into it, I mean, I would say that I don't know. I wouldn't think that Poirier would have that much success wrestling him. Maybe a little bit. That would be an X factor. I think Conor might just knock him out again. I think Poirier would be competitive. It could be. I could see it going a ton of different ways.
Okay, so I'll let you off the hook. I'll let you off the hook. So part two of that question is, or part two of the narrative is, do you think that Khabib has improved his striking at all?
Since when?
Call it. Well, yeah, no, the last few fights. Have you noticed any improvement in striking?
I feel like I've noticed improvements throughout his career, but I still don't consider him like a great technical striker. He doesn't land in high volume. I wouldn't favor him while this fight plays out on the feet. He just lands at such a low volume, but could he stay out of range and defensively, sound enough, throw the jab, keep Dustin at range until they get in close, where then he can look to clinch, look to land takedowns? That's possible. But I don't think he goes out there and is like competitive with Dustin in a straight boxing match.
Fair enough. Okay.
So yeah, again, for me, from a DraftKings perspective, I think you can play Dustin, but here's the thing. I don't know. There's not a lot of underdogs that I think are going to be popular. So I think Dustin might end up being the most popular underdog, north of 30, 35% even. I don't know if you agree with that. Just because who else are people going to play? Who else are people going to play? And so my worry is that Dustin ends up popular, and he's like one of, if not, I think the second heaviest underdog on the slate. At a 30% ownership, I don't know that I want that much of him on DraftKings. I'd rather go heavy on Khabib. And if the time comes where I'm in the main event's coming up, I have a ton of Khabib. If Khabib wins, then I'm looking to make money. I still have that option to hedge off with a plus 350 bet on Poirier. I don't know that it's worth it to invest that much of him in Poirier on DraftKings when he's very popular based on his price and betting line. So are you going to have much Poirier? It seems like you're on Khabib as well. Not like anywhere near that level. I mean, 5% maybe. I mean, I still haven't decided how many lineups I'm putting together. It might be closer to 10. But I do want to say that I do believe that the UFC is missing out on a major promotional opportunity here. And for those of you that don't know or are not super active on Twitter, there's this kid on Twitter who goes by the handle Mini Khabib. And what she does is, I'm guessing she's like a teenager. She goes to all these events, hopefully with her parents. And she has 2 Khabib hats. And it's like a Khabib challenge. And she gets all these UFC stars to wear, the Khabib hat. And she has hers on. And she has all these great photo ops. And she does these these little martial arts type displays where she kicks the cap off the bottle of water. And, she has this thing in her backyard that she's, just in anticipation of the fight. And this would be a perfect example of, Dana White flies this kid and her family out there, little Mini Khabib. She's a great ambassador for MMA. Give this girl a follow. She's really cool. Mini Khabib on Twitter. That was a really awful segue into DraftKings. But Mini Khabib, she has never gotten a Khabib fight wrong. So that is something to definitely consider. That's true. Her and Paul Shaughnessy.
Her and Paul Shaughnessy have never gotten a Khabib fight wrong. So I'm going to have a small amount of Poirier. Let's talk cash. Is stack or no stack for the main event?
I don't think you have to, but there are enough. The mid range isn't great for me for cash. I don't feel really comfortable with it. So I would be looking to pay up for what I would consider more safe favorites, which means I'm going to need to punt somewhere. And, that you can argue against stacking that fight because Poirier might be on his back a lot and he's a big underdog. But, I don't feel that much better about Murphy and Cash or Abdurakhimov or Dami Ramos or Sato. So I'd probably lean towards stacking just for that salary relief and the main event exposure. But it's not something that I would say you have to do on this card.
Fair enough.
So, speaking of the mid-range, let's look at 8-5 to 7-7. Barboza, Felder. You got Jojua, Morris, Akhmedov, Cummins, Taleb, Salikov. It's a really hard range. It's really hard to create mid-range based lineups. Is there any fighter in that range that stands out to you? I feel like Felder is getting a lot of love, actually.
Yeah, again, stands out from what perspective? Like GPPs or cash? Obviously, tournaments. Okay, so tournaments. Yeah, there's a line that I think is about to flip, which is pretty obvious. Zach Cummings, but again, he's we're talking. He's just a tad under 8K at 7.9. That line may flip, create some value. I think the Nordine Taleb fight is somewhat compelling, just because I think that Muslim Salikov, the master of Kung Fu, the king of Kung Fu. His style is such that he'd really have to catch Taleb napping, I think, to beat him with how he fights, and I don't think he can win a decision. So I think that's an interesting fight. That Taleb, again, I don't know what the ceiling is on that fight unless Taleb finishes him himself, in which case it could be pretty good at 8.2K if he gets a first or second round finish. So there's that fight. The Maras prospect fight makes absolutely no sense to me. Sure, let's fly a Canadian and a Brazilian to Dubai when there's a Canada card the following week. And then, Cheesecake.
Who's the Brazilian?
I'm sorry, Russian. I guess it makes more sense on the Russian side because this is a Russia-based card. But let's fly Maras to Dubai, and when there's a card the following week in Canada, which is where she's from, and then she goes ahead and misses weight. Which look, I think that actually may work in her favor a bit because she's already
going to be bigger.
Yeah, the doctor said, look, no more. We don't want you cutting anymore. So they stopped her in mid-weight cut, which I think is good. I think that's a GPP fight. I think you were joking saying that there's a 99.99 chance that this fight finishes in an armbar submission, which is kind of interesting.
It's low-level women's MMA. Their best move, both of them, is basically arm bars from the bottom. So my worry is whoever gets the takedown screwed because they're getting submitted, in guard with an arm bar. And it's a very tough fight to call. I actually pick Sarah Morris because I think her wrestling's a little better. She's bigger. And Jojua's, all of her wins are arm bars from the bottom, and she's got a heel hook. But there's no real level of confidence there. I could easily see both fighters ending up on top position, both fighters getting close to submission throughout the fight. I think there's a chance one of them scores well, though, and I'd rather take the extra savings on Morris. So,
I think there's some interesting narrative around the other female fight. I don't believe you would. It's outside of mid-range, but if you look at KGB and JoJo Calderwood, so let's talk about KGB first. So KGB had a really disjointed training camp for this fight. Apparently she wasn't planning on fighting again for a while, and she got the call and obviously didn't want to turn the fight down, but she had a vacation that she couldn't cancel. So she literally went on vacation Hawaii and did some training with Rachel Ostovich. By the way, if they wanted to raise some money for charity, just like watching KGB and Rachel roll, I think that would raise some money.
You donate for sure,
sign me up for those videos. So she did some training in Hawaii where she was on vacation with Rachel Ostovich. So she did not have her normal quote unquote camp, which is kind of interesting. And then JoJo got chuked, as a lot of people do, and chuked is a common MMA term for those who fight, Chukagian. She got chuked. She did throw and land a bunch of strikes. I think what honestly cost her that fight is she kind of goofed off in the last 30 seconds of round 3, and that might have cost her that fight. It was really close. I had a bad feeling that the decision was not going to go JoJo's way. But, if it stays on the feet, JoJo at least has some chance. KGB is really strong, though, and she's impressively strong. And, she has thrown pretty much everybody that she's fought at 125 to the ground when she wanted to. So I think that's going to be an interesting fight. But I think JoJo offers a fairly solid floor at 7.4K, with the upside of a win being her ceiling.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's hard to favor JoJo just because Lee is so well-rounded. She's a good striker. She's a good grappler, and she's got those physical intangibles. She's a good athlete. She's strong, and Calderwood really isn't. But Calderwood throws at a very high rate. If this fight plays out on the feet, I think Calderwood could put up a lot of strikes, maybe win a competitive decision. And for 7.4K, she offers that floor that most fighters don't in that range. And there's a chance that even a 40-point loss gets competitive with the optimal lineup at 7.4K. I mean, we are desperate for underdogs on this card. And let's talk about that, because if we do want to pay up for, Khabib, and I guess we haven't really talked about it, but Curtis Blades is, it's a heavyweight fight, good chance of him winning inside the distance. There's other expensive fighters who we like. I mean, where are we going here? We talked about Murphy. We don't love Poirier. Davi Ramos is getting a little bit of love.
CDF.
Diego Ferreira. And does any other fighter interest you below Paul Felt, or I guess below Calderwood even?
Well, I guess if I didn't see CDF get hit hard by Nelson, I mean, I might like him a little more in this fight. And, obviously there's a lot of narrative around Kasimov. He fights very infrequently, apparently has visa issues. Not sure really what that is. I think our boy Newsom knows, but he's been sworn to secrecy regarding Tasmanov's visa issues. One punch power. He's not a high volume guy. It's a lot of risk with him. I mean, he's getting older. He's still in his prime, I would say. He does have that one punch power, but, if for some reason it does, get to the floor, you got a 3rd degree black belt in CDF. So I think, again, that is like a pure GPP type of punt. Like I don't know if I would play either one of those guys in cash, because, you could get a low output decision. I mean, look, he had a hard time with Green, and let me rephrase that. Maybe he didn't have a hard time with Green, but he could not put Green away.
He landed 27 significant strikes in 15 minutes. And that's the same concern I have with all. I will continue to bang this drum until people understand. Low volume fighters are just inherently so risky.
Yep.
Landing 27 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes, you're asking yourself to get screwed by the judges there. And this is a fight where Diego Ferreira, he is going to be aggressive. He is going to push the pace. He lands at a much higher rate. He doesn't care about, being over aggressive and his opponent taking him down, because he's such a high level submission grappler. And yeah, he's not the greatest technical striker in the world, but he needs to fight with a pace, with a volume in order to win fights. And that's exactly what he's done. So I like this fight because I feel like either the pace of Ferreira is just going to be too much for Tysonov. He's not going to be able to land enough significant strikes. He can't really take Ferreira down. And I could see Ferreira winning a volume-based decision, maybe getting to submission. I don't think that outcome is super likely, but I'm willing to play Ferreira for that price. At the same time, if Ferreira loses, I think there's a good chance that Tysonov just knocks him out early, because Ferreira's still going to be aggressive. He's still going to be pushing that pace.
Yep.
But Tysonov is the better striker. He's got power in his hands. So I like that fight from a DraftKings perspective. I kind of think that Ferreira and Poirier are going to be the two highest owned fighters below like the mid range, which
Although
makes
I'd feel a lot more comfortable with Poirier in cash than I would with Ferreira, and I wouldn't play Tasmanov in cash either. I see that as a GPP fight.
Oh, I wouldn't touch Tyson in cash.
Yeah, that's a GPP fight because what if you get the decision where he lands 30 strikes? I mean, he's going to score 50, 60 points maybe. You
guys have any questions?
Shit, we haven't gotten any questions.
Well, no, I mean we've got a lot of comments. I just haven't really been looking at them.
Okay, look at the comments, dude. Why can't I see them?
I don't know.
Wow, do I got to go under live comments?
I don't know what. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Here they are. Talib gonna win. Jim Miller took down Poirier. Yeah, Jim Miller though is got really high level jiu-jitsu.
Before I get into the comments, the other fighter I touched on, Davi Ramos, he's 7K. I've seen a lot of people in the comments mention him as another one of these punt options, and it's kind of that same question mark, right? Makhachev, yes, Makhachev is a very good wrestler, but how much success is he going to have in this matchup wrestling against a world-class submission grappler? Maybe a little bit. Maybe he lands takedowns. Maybe here in some top position. I don't think that's that crazy, but I wonder how much he's actually going to get done in top position. And so my fear is that this fight ultimately comes down to, it's a kickboxing match. Ramos isn't going to be able to take Makhachev down. Makhachev isn't going to be able to do much on top. So they're just going to stand and trade. And Makhachev still has not proven himself capable of winning fights on the feet. He only lands like 1.9 significant strikes per minute. The technique might be there, but I don't know. And any interest at all in Davi Ramos?
I'm sorry, I was distracted. I mean,
what comment are you looking at?
This guy Bryce Hurt. Tyler, by the way, Tyler, thank you for wishing me better on my cough. I actually been sucking on cough drops and actually got an inhaler. I don't know what's wrong with me. So Tyler Lee says, nice hat, looks dope, Joe. And then this guy, Bryce comes back and says, nice hat, makes your head look slim. Davi Ramos. I think that this fight could be just a stylistic disaster. I mean, my biggest fear here is that we get a striking match from a chain wrestler and a submission specialist. That is not going to be fun. I initially went into this liking Islam, as sort of the heir apparent to Khabib, but I just don't know. I mean, at his price point, I guess I probably like Ramos a bit more than I do Islam, but I just don't know what to do with that fight. I mean,
I'm totally off. Makhachev at 9.2K. There is just no chance I'm paying up for him. Not when Khabib's $100 more expensive. Not when Curtis Blades is $200 more expensive. I'd rather play Taisumov. I'd rather play fighters we haven't even talked about, Zaitar. I'd rather play Madge. It's just Makhachev. He doesn't land enough significant strikes at all. So he's going to have to get it. He always gets his work done on the mat. And yeah, he might be able to land some takedowns. At 9.2K in that range, we're needing 95, 100 points. And I would bet against him being able to dominate a ADCC champion on the mat, even if he does earn top position. So I'm essentially fading Makhachev.
One fight that we didn't talk about, and I think might get a little bit of love, and this is coming from Ryan, and you mentioned it, Ottoman Zaitar. It's interesting. He said boom or bust. Okay, so here's the narrative around this guy for those of you that did not listen to Dog or Pass. This guy is like tied into like Moroccan royalty. He is apparently already quite well off. His brother is also a fighter. I think he fought in the UFC. He's doing this more for glory than he is for cash. And I did watch some tape on him. I watched some film on him. He's a really aggressive striker, although he does leave himself wide open to be hit. And then you've got, the Finnish wonder here, Packalin, who got knocked out in 30 seconds by Mark Diakese, but also took down Thibaut the Great Goody. So my co-host on the RotoWire pod is going to come out and say and pick Packalin to get the win here. So I think you might see a little bit of love here for Packalin, because anytime we see these guys that come in to the UFC that fight not because they have to, like I like hungry fighters, like I like guys that are in it,
like Derek Lewis,
to make money and feed their family, like Derek Lewis. They need to come in to make their money and to feed their family, right? This guy is set, Now I'm not going to go out and say he's like that. Who was that guy that fought on the Russian card, the rap star with the mob ties? That was, had all those followers, and it was a one-hit wonder. He fought on the Russian card. He was kind of a bricked up dude, but did nothing. Once he got taken down, it was over. I don't want to go as far as say that's what's going to happen here, but this could be a really interesting fight to target in GPPs, because you got a guy that's a pretty prolific finisher, that's aggressive, against a guy that is probably technically better in some areas, but also hasn't fought in a while. So that's kind of an interesting fight. And like I said, my good buddy, the DFS Sniper, is gonna come on the RotoWire show, and I pick Packalin is a walking bobblehead, and pick Mr. Packalin to win. So, what do you think? Do you think he's got a shot?
I think he's got a shot. I am very heavy on this fight, and it's one I definitely wanted to talk about before we got off here. It's minus 225 to end inside the distance. The tape that I see on Azaitar isn't necessarily like, oh, he's some great technical fighter.
No.
But he is aggressive.
Yes.
And he hunts for the early finish, and that leaves him very defensively open. I said this all week. I mean, we've seen him rocked and dropped multiple times on the regional scene, but he's just recovered and ended up winning. He's still 11-0. So I definitely think the longer this guy Azaitar fights, he's going to get knocked out. He's going to get finished. And I also think he's going to get finishes. So the narrative is there in that sense for this fight to end inside the distance. The metrics back that up. I think Azaitar is going to be popular amongst the sharps, the hardcores, people who follow the sport, who just look at the records. You see Packalin hasn't fought in a couple of years, was knocked out in 30 seconds. And I like him. I think Azaitar is a great play. I think he has early knockout upside. And I like Packalin in the sense just trying to capitalize on the variance of the fight. I'm favoring Azaitar. I'm playing Azaitar much heavier, but am I like that confident that he is just going to, I don't know what Packalin's been up to the past few years. I know he's been injured, but we've even never seen him strike in extended exchanges. I don't know that Azaitar's wrestling's been tested that much. There's just so much that could happen here. At the end of the day, if Packalin did the same thing he did to Thibaut Goody, runs out there, clocks Azaitar in the first 30 seconds, and then jumps on his back and gets a choke, I don't think that's that crazy. So I really like Azaitar. I think this is a great fight to target, to be overweight on as a whole. And I'm not picking Packalin, but I definitely do have some shares of him on the flip side. Anything else we got here? Any other questions? Any other fight or fighters you want to talk about, Joe?
I mean, I think we've given a pretty good roadmap to this card.
Any love for Madge Ziam?
Yeah, I mean, I think Madge is going to be very popular. He's especially coming off of his last win, and he is priced right at 8.7K. So I think Madge will be pretty popular. I don't know a lot about Ziam. I mean, I tried to watch some film on him. He seems to be athletic. Although I think his training camp he trains with a group of Bulgarians. I'm not really sure too much. I mean, this is where I need Newsom here to give us some color on Ziem.
You're giving away your secret European source?
Yeah, well, it's one of them. I've got several. Although I will make an offer right now. Anybody who can get me some film on the training sessions between KGB and Rachel Ostovich, I will give my cash lineup away for a future card. So if you guys get me some film on that, I will give you, for whatever it's worth, I'll give you my cash lineup.
What a priceless gift, Joe.
I know. I mean, it is. What can I say? I should say I've been ice cold recently. Last week was a horrible card for me. I was distracted. I did tell my Twitter followers, all 5 of them, that I was in the NASCAR final, and had my partner up, my buddy up here, and we sweated through the NASCAR race that ended up starting like 3 hours late. So what was supposed to start at 6 almost started at 10. So they had insult to injury. We're up to like 1:30 watching fucking NASCAR. And it's the first NASCAR fight I've ever watched beginning to end.
NASCAR fight?
Yeah, and we ended up finishing 27th out of 30th. Unfortunately, every bad break went our way. So I was a little bit distracted by that. But, let's get it this week, man. Yeah.
Yep. I just to recap on that Don match fight, I do like him. I do think that's another good fight to target. So good inside distance line there. I think he will be popular, like you said, but we have given a pretty good roadmap there. There's just a lot of fights on this card. We've talked about the ones I think that are important. There's a lot, I don't want to target Tukagov. I don't really want to target Makhachev. Bilal Muhammad scores 82 points every single fight. Andrea Lee's not that exciting of a play. And then there's that total up in the air mid-range. So it's a very tough card, in my opinion. It should be a fun card to watch. I'm really excited for the main event, but it's a tough card from DraftKings perspective. And I think, obviously, if you have a strong lean on an underdog, go after it, because at this current moment, it doesn't look like there are many obvious underdogs to play.
I think, Brett, our millions of viewers want to know. I mean, given your propensity for sleep, will you be up at 7:15 a.m. Pacific time to watch this? I mean,
I'll get up.
Yeah. Are you a coffee drinker? I can't remember.
I used to be, back when I was working at CBS, the job I had before what I'm doing now. I would drink like 3 cups of coffee a day, and I was doing that since college. And then after a while, I started not to like it anymore, and it kind of messes up my stomach a little bit. So I don't drink coffee that much anymore. It's still in my cabinet if I ever want it. But it used to be 3 cups per day. Now it's down to basically none. So I'm going to wake up.
Do they have caffeine flavored edibles?
Caffeine flavored edibles?
Coffee flavored.
Coffee flavored edibles. Maybe. I don't know.
I wouldn't know. But yeah, I was curious. That might be an end run around the whole upset stomach thing anyway. Just looking out for you, buddy.
You don't want to be taking edibles if you got an upset stomach. But.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's true. Yeah. So it shows you what little I know about that shit.
Yeah. It's okay.
I've got other vices though. So, yeah. Okay.
Well, Joe, what do you got the rest of the day? You doing the RotoWire pod here?
No, we got RotoWire. Got some a little bit of college football tonight, but RotoWire. I am not a big NFL player. I will leave that to the legions of other people out there. Some juicy contests. DraftKings did already release the televised slate, so take a look at that. There's always some good value on the TV slate, above and beyond the main slate. And remember, this is an early start time, so for those of you who like to wait till the last minute to reserve contests, I mean, I haven't looked recently, but they will probably sell out way ahead of schedule. So take a look. Don't get shut out.
Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for the support as always. Please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, helps us out a lot. Follow Joe on Twitter at Sunsu. You can follow me on Twitter at BrettAbley, I will be up tomorrow morning in premium chat if anyone wants to jump in there and hang out. Any other questions, feel free to hit us up. Best of luck in your contest this week, guys, and we will talk to you soon. Peace.